Hello, hello. Hopefully you do hear me, you do see me. Please write down something, a plus or anything, just to let me know that you see me. That would be great. And the first question for you is, how are you feeling today? Where are you from? Or maybe where do you live? A few things. Just okay, now I see that you are here. Great. Okay, while you're answering me, a few things to mention. Hi, a few things to mention. First of all, I have my notes here. I have my chat right here. So I also have a cup of water. So don't mind me looking away somewhere. I'm just in my notes anywhere, probably. The next thing, don't want to be rude here, but please keep your questions to yourself until the very end of the conference, unless I ask you something particular. If I don't ask you anything, please do not write down anything, just because that would make me a bit more nervous. Hope you understand me. We have 1 hour. Hopefully we managed to cover everything I've created for you today. And I would like you to be Odessa, Khmelnytsky, Kharkiv. Nice to meet you guys. Great. Be active, please, because whenever you're active, you get more information, you gain more knowledge. So please, that would be great. So I believe we would start off with introduction. My name is Julia, if you wish, Bеспятова Юлія. I am a teacher of English. I have experience of approximately 5 years. I love teaching teenagers and adults, but also I have experience teaching all age groups. So probably I might be in handy for you. I might know something. And I help teachers with improving their methodology, with their approaches, with making them feel a bit more confident. And I'm also an author of educational programs such as this one, webinars, different courses for students, for teachers. Yep, that's it. Great. Now, I want you to look at the topic here. You see, yeah? A crucial webinar for teachers considering quitting. Probably you are here for a reason. This topic is complicated. I don't actually know how to start this one, and therefore we're gonna go just to the plan. You can look at this one. We're gonna discuss discontent today, community, managing stress, professional development, well-being, and your roles. Well, our roles. Which roles do we take? First of all, my goal is to obviously to keep you all in your jobs, of course, but what I want even more from you is that you all decide to be happy in what you're doing. There are thousands actually of webinars considering how to improve teaching, how to make your students fall in love with the language, how to make your students more comfortable. But now I want you to appreciate the moment. Let's take a moment and speak about ourselves. Enough to think about everyone else. Please, about you, about teachers. So the first thing challenges that we as teachers have. I believe that everyone as a teacher thought about quitting. I did as well. Many of my colleagues did, and actually that's the reason of this webinar right now, because I see this tendency and I don't want this to happen. Please let me know if you faced that as well. Okay. Khmelnytsky, we have a lot of people from Khmelnytsky, Donetsk region, great. Okay, I see almost 100 people here. I'm blessed, thank you guys. So let me know, please, if you have had this thoughts. Okay, I see at least one person did have it. I suppose there were many, actually. So, because of the fact that we as teachers are creative species, we need inspiration. If we're not inspired, we're not productive. And as rude as it might sound, we're not the best teachers. Most of us think like this. So what steals our inspiration? There are many, I see a lot of teachers face this. I see that there are many challenges that teachers encounter, which are diverse student abilities, and you never know what to do with your students in this situation. Should you be sticking to the simpler tasks or to more complicated ones? Should you be doing, what should you do in this case? I believe that it's a hard question, and actually nobody tells you what choices to make, and to be honest, there is not one correct answer to this one as to any other questions that we have. So we don't know what to do with that. Also, there's large class sizes, especially that is for school teachers, but for other teachers as well, for group teachers who teach individually, or we have group lessons as well. So sometimes it might be a problem. Assessment. We don't want our students to feel ashamed. We don't want any negative emotions. So whenever we see a negative student, we think that we've done something wrong with that. So that steals our energy. And engagement of students. I know that everyone has faced this, the fact that sometimes people don't want to learn. And that's completely fine. We can't do anything with that. That's it. But we're creative. We're sensible. We're sensitive. So yeah. So first of all, from one point of view, you have power to make your students fall in love with the language. Or I think that you teach languages here. But from the other side, from the other point of view, you are extremely responsible, and probably you have lots of questions in your head, at least sometimes. So why are we discontented? We have huge workload. We lack support. This salary actually is not the highest for many people, and there is lack of recognition. I believe a lot of teachers struggle here. Plus, there's discipline and behavior issues from the students. We all know that we're not parents, but still, sometimes need to, we are supposed to somehow figure out what to do with this, but we should not actually. And there's high expectations from the students of different age groups, from the parents as well. We are supposed to teach them for free. For a second, from A1 to C2 for a month, and for no money at all. Yeah, that happens sometimes, right? Have you faced with any of that? Have you ever had these problems coming up to your head? So high expectations, needing to assess discipline, behavior, engagement. I'm waiting for your pluses. Yes, true. Great. So the first step, not to lose motivation, not to lose your inspiration, would be community. You can take a look at the photo on the right. What do you see there? Yes, you face that, of course. You see there a group of superheroes. Of course, each and any of you is a superhero on your own. But when working as a team, you are, nobody can fight you. You are the best. So being in the community which supports you is the best experience ever. And now I want you to take a closer look at people, teachers surrounding you. Answer questions, not to me, for yourself. Are those teachers, is your community interesting, supportive? Are they of your age? Can they speak to you without criticizing you? Can they provide you with a positive, or maybe not positive, just constructive feedback? Answer that in your head. Those questions are to be answered not only here on the webinar, but also after it as well. I think that you will need some time thinking about that. So everybody will agree with me that a strong community, supportive community, helps a lot. In situations, in times when you feel depressed, it is necessary to have at least one person to whom you can tell everything. I know that there are students who sometimes gossip about teachers. And I believe personally that that's completely fine if teachers sometimes gossip about students. It's fine. Nobody should know that, but we as teachers know that. Yeah, because sometimes there are such students that we do not want to work with. And that's the hard truth. But the least we can do with that, if not stopping the lessons, would be discussing that with someone just to ease our pain, So teachers can collaborate and share their ideas, experiences, and the best practices, what to do in each situation. You might notice opportunities for professional development while being in the group of supportive teachers. Moral and emotional support also are important for you. And I believe teaching is a demanding profession. We face various stresses and stressors, and community provides support, as I've mentioned 1 million times, you know it. You receive encouragement, you seek advice. That's just a great thing to do. So when felt connected and valued, you're more likely to stay in the profession and, community will make you feel more positive, and you will therefore have this more positive impact on your students. Going to the next one. Working techniques, stress management. I'm sorry, I'm really this old-fashioned lady, as I might not seem to be such, but still I need notes. Time to think about yourself. How do you manage stress in such difficult circumstances? Do you guys have any ideas, any, life hacks how you manage stress being a teacher? I'm waiting for your answers in the chat. Power of superheroes, right? Yes, we are. I will let you know my techniques of managing stress after you're done with being active in the chat. Relax and start over. Well, may help, but that leads burnout if you start over again and again and again. Listen to music, great. Hobby, dancing, wow. Chocolate, amazing. But again, that also leads to some interesting consequences. Breathing and count to 10, sometimes it helps. Yeah, that's such a great exercise. I actually know this technique. My psychologist told me about this, and I believe that everyone knows it. Like the technique of the square. So you need to start breathing, counting to 4, stop your breathing to 4, trying to breathe out to 4, stopping it, and like make a few circles about that. Thinking about something good, nature, relaxing, preparing a job beforehand to relax the whole class. Well, that's great. Breathe deeply. Yeah, we are superheroes actually. We have so many life hacks. Okay, about the ones that I have. The first one would be, well, not that obvious, but still time management. If we don't want to stress that much, we need to set realistic goals and prioritize our responsibilities. We need to buy a planner. That helps, I would tell you. You just see what you have to do and that's it. Why do students have their diaries and we don't? I believe that's not fair. We should have something like that. And you won't feel so overwhelmed when you see everything that you need to do. I tend to forget so much, but when I have everything written down, that's just amazing. It works 100%. I cannot say that I take everything on the list, but still it's many things. Next one, setting boundaries. Setting boundaries, firstly, between work and your personal life, and that's the most important actually. You need to stop working overtime. I know that's challenging sometimes, but at least you need to start to create a habit of finishing work in the particular time, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, but just you need to stop doing everything by that point. And then you will have me time. So setting boundaries here. Also, setting boundaries with people. I don't know which group category you have, age groups you have still. You need to do that with all of them, with parents, with students of young age, with adults who are learning. So please talk through your rules. Do not let screaming happen. Do not let some unsaid peculiarities happen. You need to speak all the time and set boundaries. And it would be better if you do that at the very first lesson or before that even. Next one, you have to encourage students' autonomy. Please empower them to take responsibility for their learning. You are not the God. I told you that you are a superhero, but you are not the God. You cannot make a student learn everything unless they want that, truly. So they have to do some of the exercises on their own. You have to sometimes just sit in silence while they are doing some of the work. You don't need to jump around and you don't need to be the clown. Just sit down and breathe. That's it. If possible, reduce time spent on checking homework. Give them those tests and then ask them to count the amount of correct answers. That would be so pleasing if you get rid of this kind of exercise yourself that takes so much time, I can imagine. Just ask them to make something on their own. Next one, practice self-care. Lots of you have written down a lot of self-care routines here. Reading books, I see coffee in cozy places, meeting with friends, music, animals. We all know that, but sometimes we forget to do that. So practice self-care. Practice writing down a journal. Practice breathing, practice doing something that you like. Next one, incorporate humor and fun activities in your lesson. Someone has written down that I would just find this. Prepare a joke beforehand to relax the whole class. Yes, you will relax the whole class, you will relax yourself, and just it will make the atmosphere of the year of the class more pleasant for everyone. So the more relaxed and enjoyable learning environment is, the better results students have, the more comfortable you feel, and just that's a good thing to do. And the last one here would be reflecting and learning from your mistakes. So sometimes we tend to dwell on our mistakes, but you need to use them as learning opportunities. Well, we all the time tell the students, don't forget to make mistakes. Make mistakes, it's okay. It's fine if you make mistakes. I won't tell you anything about that. It's okay. You learn by making mistakes, but we forget that about ourselves. Teachers also should make mistakes. It's fine. Next one. Yeah, do you agree that we should make mistakes? Someone told about different ways which do not help. I hope that the ways that I've told you about will help you. Oh, that's so cute. Cartoons, listening to children's songs, comics, reading books. Great. Okay, I see your pluses now. Great. The next thing would be reconnecting with passion. So why did you enter, guys? Why did you initially enter the profession? Could you please tell me that? I remember me, I didn't want to enter this profession. That was fun. My mom always used to tell me, you should become a teacher. I'm like, no way, I will not. Here I am, being a teacher. It just happened. I just knew I didn't want to have exams in math, and I'm like, okay, I will have exams in English. And I turn out to be here a teacher. I started teaching on the first course of university just to have some money, some pocket money. Then I started doing that more and more. I can say that I fell in love with the language. And with teaching as well, with my students, I love them. Some may piss me off, of course, but usually I love it. What's your passion? Why did you enter teaching? I don't see your answers. Everybody's thinking, like everybody's having existential crisis. Why the hell did I do this? That's my strength. I've been teaching since my childhood. I adore English. That's great. That's a good thing. Everyone else is probably really having an existential crisis. I don't want that anymore. Hate kids and teens and adults. Love screaming. Really nothing? Okay. Well, I believe that for me it's a real pleasure. Great. Teaching someone. Do you still feel that you truly can help someone? Because I feel like the ones listening to this, I wanted to say podcast, the ones listening to this webinar and watching this probably have some problems and probably have strong feelings about teaching, either good ones or bad ones. Do you still feel like you can help? I wanted to be like my first teacher. That is so great. Truly, I believe that there are obviously many good teachers, but there are also many bad teachers, and you just don't want other children to be hurt. You want them to have great teachers. I have become a teacher of English a year ago at the age of 37. Well, it's great. Good job. Yes, but not always. You don't always feel like you can help. Yes, that happens. Yes. So what I want you to remember now is the eyes of those who understood. Who understood the, like, I don't know, present perfect, or who understood how to build usual sentence. The eyes of those who started speaking. Probably your students don't tell you much about the way they feel, about their learning process. I know many students don't like this, many students need this because their parents told them, many students do it just because everyone in 21st century needs to know English or know any other language, whatever language you're teaching. But still, there are some who know why they are here and who appreciate your work, but they don't say it. You can read everything by their eyes. I want you to remember that. When you have a feedback, it brings a lot of joy. I do agree with that, right? But you don't have the feedback all the time. You might ask your students to do so, but it doesn't always work. Okay. So please also have good relationships with your students. Don't be evil. Don't scream at them. I know sometimes you want to. I know sometimes, especially children, they might be irritating. I know. But don't scream at them. Don't be evil. Really. You want them to have good relationship with you. They need your support. Sometimes, you are their only support. Especially if we're talking about kids or teens. But adults as well. They come to your lessons because, well, the first thing, yes, probably they want to learn. But the second thing, if you are a good teacher, they come to your lessons for comfort. They want to listen to your stories. They want to see your kind smile. They want you to help them and support them. You are their role model. And you see a lot of stories, and even in the chat right now, that children sometimes want to become teachers just because they have good memories of teachers from the past. I mean, ex-children. We're not children anymore, probably. And so we want to take steps of our good teachers. Nobody wants to become a teacher of math because, well, I don't want to offend anyone, but I personally had bad experience with math teacher. Some of them, not all of them. Okay. Mustn't shout at them. To be like a good friend, right? Well, still, you are a teacher, but it would be so great to be friends. Sometimes speak with them. What do they want? What do they like? How are they? Don't be just a teacher. Of course, it's your work, but we'll talk about that later as well. Best friend. Well, I'm not sure if you should be a best friend, but be a good friend. The person they want to come to, in case they have some difficulties. Oftentimes, children do not go to their parents just because they're afraid, they have family problems, and they want to go to someone to be heard. And it would be so great if you would be the person who they would come to. The same goes with adults, actually. I have so many students, adult students, who tell me, who spill all the tea. And they truly need this, especially in this time when we had coronavirus and quarantine, then we have war, everyone is online, you hardly ever see your friends, you just need someone to talk to. The next thing, are you doing okay? Let's talk about well-being. Everybody knows that you need to do sport, you need to eat healthy, you need to sleep, but rarely does someone does it. Actually, I don't know why. I remember, again, sharing something personal with you guys. Hopefully that will help. I remember last year, at the end of November, maybe the beginning of winter, it was blackout back then. I felt so bad. Almost depressed, I would say. I believe many teachers, many people in our country did. I was teaching online. Of course, sometimes my lessons did not work out just because nobody had the light. That's fine. But because of the fact that I was not sure if someone needed me, if I needed someone, I lacked the desire to do anything. I didn't want to do sport, of course. I was depressed. But I started realizing that I am like making 300 steps a day maximum and no sport at all. I was doing everything online, of course. Why should I go anywhere? But I was missing out on the light. I mean, all the metaphors can come here, but like the usual light. And that was so bad. And then I realized something should be changed here, because my back hurt, my eyes ached. I felt so bad. I'm like, okay, I probably need to do something with that. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, thank God I have a park nearby, a forest. You don't need to have it nearby, still you might stick to the life hack I will give you. I just started thinking, I probably want to breathe the fresh air. Just opening the windows doesn't work anymore. So I started going out, and when you go out, why the heck did I go out? Probably I should have a walk. I did. I started having more and more walks. And the strange thing is that the more active I was, the more active I wanted to be. So first it was like 2,000 steps, then it was 5,000 steps. Now it's my habit going for a walk every day. I may have like 30k steps a day. Because I sometimes don't want to do any sport, but that is some kind of sport, at least something. So doing sport is great. And I know not everybody likes gym, I don't. But do something that you do like. And you need to know what you like. Someone told me that they like dancing. Great. Maybe someone will open up yoga classes. Great. Why not? Just something for your body. We should be feeling great. Of course, eating good, sleeping well, you have to make the sleeping habit good. Also, we see here different categories. Sense of self. Do you know who you are? Have you been thinking of who you are and what you like recently? Positive emotions. Do you have them at all? Do you go somewhere outside? Do you meet with friends? That's just the things that people considering quitting think of all the time. So I would put it like this. It may sound a bit rude, but still. You have your students. They just come to you, they learn, maybe they don't. After they go to another classes, they do learn or they don't learn. After that, they play, they have their work, they go outside and stuff. And what about you? So you come to the class, you teach, and then what? You teach, and then what? You teach, and then what? You check homeworks, and then what? You prepare for the lessons, and then what? What? Do you have anything that you are doing that you like? I feel that that's so philosophical. I want you now to take a breath and tell me if you're alive, if you still follow me. Great. What do you think about everything I've mentioned? Do you have some insights, maybe? Well, if you do, which ones? Don't be shy. Everyone is the same here. We are all teachers. We have, I don't want to say we have the same emotions, but we do. We're different people. Everyone has different kinds of it. We all think about the same things, but, well, in different times, but we do think about that. Yeah, we have to do something great for ourselves, right? Don't forget about yourselves. When I started doing something that I liked, when I started going out, when I started, like, I don't need many friends, but still, when I started doing something for myself, this me time about which everyone is talking, I started understanding that I like teaching more. I'm not that irritated and that sad while preparing for the lessons or checking the homework. I still am a bit irritated and I still am a bit tired, but that's not that much. That's just to an extent, a bit. Yeah, social connections, that's something we've already discussed. You somehow need to connect with people. That's great. Negative emotions. We as teachers 100% have negative emotions, experiences. Do you have someone to talk to? Do you have this community? How do you express those emotions? You can't scream at your children, at your students, at your adults. Well, how? Do you have any ways? Are you passive-aggressive? Because if you are, probably you won't have students. If you have private lessons, like group lessons, something. If you do not have those private lessons and you work at school, probably you will have problems with parents, or kids will not like you. And are you sure what you want to do in future? In a year, in 5 years? Are you stuck in the same place? Do you know what's your purpose? Do you know how to grow in your area? That's not for me. If you want to, you can share your ideas in the chat here. But that's not for me, that's for you. That's just for thinking. Yeah, walking in the evenings instead of sleeping. That's a great one. If you sleep at night. If you don't sleep at all, probably that's not good. Firstly, sleeping and eating normal food. Yeah, stop being a 12-year-old. Stop eating sandwiches. Like, I mean, everyone will eat sandwiches, but not that much. Stop eating so much sugar. I know everyone talks about that, but still, start eating more veggies at least. That will make a big difference. Okay, and the last one. Which roles are taken? Maybe something else. You're probably considering quitting. Maybe now you don't. Maybe now you are thinking about that even more. But, well, teachers take lots of roles. We are teachers. We are mentors, organizers, role models. We should be perfect, right? As a teacher of English, German, whatever. You should be the person who knows it perfectly. You need to know everything. You need to be a walking Google. We are role models. We are assessors. Yeah, we test them. We're designers. We want to make our presentations, our work, our lessons beautiful. We're designers. We're counselors. Sometimes we provide psychological support. We don't know how to do that. Maybe some of us do, but we have to. We're advocates. We are innovators. We're motivators. We're continuous learners, and so on. All these roles are good. Everything is great. We take all those roles. But should we stop bearing this burden? I mean, yes, these roles are good, and if you have energy and motivation and inspiration, and if you feel like you want to be the best, why not? Of course, take them all. But in times when you don't feel like doing that, please don't do them, all of them. Your main idea is to be a teacher. So you're not supposed to do it all, especially when you don't feel like doing this. When you don't have what to give to yourself first, there is nothing to give to the others, to your students, to their parents, and so on. To the community too. You are a part of community. You might help other teachers too. Be and psychologists and mothers. Yes, we don't want to be parents, but sometimes we are supposed to be. Yeah, so please don't take those roles if you don't feel like doing that. Your main idea is to be a teacher. So stop bearing all the responsibilities on your shoulders. If you don't like some roles at all, maybe you should consider delegating them. Maybe ask other students to help you out with something. Ask some teachers to help you out with something else. You might need a psychologist yourself in a role of another teacher. So sometimes it's just better to get loose. And only in case you want to delegate the most of your roles, you should probably consider quitting. Only in that way. If you don't like at all what you're doing, if you're thinking, I don't really like being a mentor, an organizer, a role model, assessor, designer, counselor, blah, 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 everything, and you start considering the fact that probably you don't like teaching, and that is the time to think, should I do this at all? But that's okay if you feel like that sometimes. All of us do. All of us get tired. All of us have war outside. All of us sometimes feel depressed or, just feel bad. There's been a rude lady on the street and we feel bad. But if you're thinking about that all the time, I don't know. You have to think about that more. So, we should be everything. What about salary? Right, that's the question. As to the salary, that's probably one of the hardest questions, especially if you're working somewhere in school. And probably you should consider doing something else. You should consider having some extra lessons sometimes, if it's not hard for you, at least. Private lessons, group lessons, something extra. I know it's hard, especially now. But yeah, you should consider doing something with that. You are responsible for your life. You are used to being responsible for everybody else's lives, for students. You all the time help each other. But again, the question remains the same. Are you gonna be responsible for your life? So it's the things that we should face all the time. It's the questions that we should ask ourselves all the time. Okay, I had a situation when my second grade pupil told me that she liked me more than her mother. That was strange. I get it. We can't do anything with that. Literally. There's nothing to do. You should not be a mother to this person. You should probably somehow tell her, of course, it's second grade, she doesn't understand it, but still, you should somehow tell her that she's not your mother, but please be kind to her. Probably she has really bad relationships in the family, and you are the life savior of hers. So, yeah, that might feel strange, unusual, but you have to be kind to her. Not kinder than to the others. She's still not your daughter, but or son. That's it. Guys, I think that I'm done with everything that I wanted to tell you. I obviously don't want anyone to consider quitting. I'm the person who considered that 1,000,000 times, but still I'm here, and I'm not planning to do that in the future. And I don't want anyone to do that as well. We need teachers in our country, good teachers. But again, as I told you in the very beginning, you should first think about yourself, what you like and what you want from this life. Sometimes this happens, and that's sad, very sad. Sometimes this happens that my colleagues quit just because they got tired. And then they don't know what to do with their life. They start doing at least something, but they do not enjoy it that much as they did teaching people. And they get more and more depressed. And then they're like, okay, I've chosen my way. I'm not a teacher anymore. And then they're like, maybe I should start thinking about teaching as well again. I'm not sure. And that saddens me, really. Don't lose your passion if you are just tired or depressed. Just take a breath, relax, eat some chocolate. Don't eat any chocolate at all and eat only greens. Like do some sport or something. Give yourself a break from doing everything. But don't quit until you feel that you don't like it anymore at all for a long period of time. Now, I would like you to ask questions. Do you have anything to ask me? Any situations that you wanted I would respond? Or anything particular? That would be great. So you have the power to teach. You are superheroes, but you are not gods. That's the main point. Interesting. You're welcome, guys. Any questions? Let's wait a few more minutes. Welcome, you guys. I love being participant here. I want to thank the ones that proposed me to be here. I want to thank you for coming. What do you do when your students tell you they don't like English? It depends on students, on their age category. If that is an adult, I just don't teach them anymore. I stop teaching them. If that's your pupil and you are in school, probably you can't do anything with that. Actually, well, that's about motivation. Probably you should think about the way you create your lessons. Again, I know you're not designer, you're not everything, but maybe you should be a bit of a designer, a bit of a clown, just a bit sometimes. Maybe you could motivate them to learn. If you just jump everywhere and go from one place to another, doing everything that you can, but still they don't like English, you can't do anything with that. You are not the parent, you are not the person to, you cannot enter their brain and make them want it if they don't want it. If I don't like some... Okay, what do I not like? Okay, I told you, I don't like gym. If I don't like gym, no matter how many times people will tell me that it's good for my health, I will not go there. That's just it. So whenever we are kids, we're supposed to do something that we don't like because our parents say so we should do it. We can't do anything with that, but still, don't be too strict on yourself. They just don't want to. They just will not do it. The last thing that you could do, if the last straw is already taken away from you, you can just ask them to be silent if they're too loud in the class situations, in the classroom. To be silent and do their business. Some may say it's not professional, but you will not make them do anything. Okay, things that related to life. Yes. I'm really glad that you liked it, guys. If any questions you might ask me, we have a few more minutes to go. Topical issues. I'm glad that was topical issue just because it actually is, and nobody talks about that. Okay. I see no questions left. I see no questions left, and that means that probably would be it. Yep. So I was really glad not to see you, but to read your comments in the chat, hoping you don't lose your inspiration and motivation, but if you do, know that you will find something else, and that's fine. If you are irritated, if you have all the bad emotions about teaching, that's fine. Everybody has it. Just find someone to talk to. Not necessarily the psychologist. Again, psychologists are expensive, right? Journaling, if no one is around. Writing down all your emotions and how you feel about everything. Just maybe create this tiny bonfire. Throw those sheets of papers in there with your thoughts and ideas and your negative emotions. But it would be better, of course, to find another teacher and share the experience and have a good laugh about that. So I was really glad to be here today. Thank you, guys, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, good evening, dear colleagues. And, well, happy to not really see, but hopefully interact with you today. And today I'm going to talk about translanguaging, some ways to use it, etc. Well, before we actually delve into the topic itself, I do hope that you can hear me. So if you can you just put a plus into the chat box, which would be great, just for me to know that you can hear me, that everything is okay with our connection and that everything is functioning. Okay, right, good. So before we delve into the topic, let me just briefly introduce myself. Well, I'm an English teacher and a teacher of a variety of language and translation related disciplines. I work at Kharkiv National University, but I'm also like a tutor, a consultant, this kind of stuff. So everything related to language, translation, well, business language as well, business English mostly. Well, and as usual, many thanks to Na Urok for the opportunity to be here, to share ideas, to hopefully ask some of yours, and to raise the questions that we are actually facing now. And there was quite a few, I'd say, because really there is a lot of change currently in education and in language learning as well. So just before we start, I'd like to know, well, do you use L1 in your classes? And do you use it a lot? Because this is something that my presentation today is mostly focused on. So I'd like to just know your opinion. Do you use it? And again, do you do that a lot? Do you do that in limited amounts or anything, any of your ideas? Because, well, today we are going to speak about some of its benefits, some of like challenges, etc. And while you're doing that, I'm really looking forward to your questions, comments in the chat box. I will surely answer all of them at the end of the talk, and I do hope that our facilitators today won't let me miss any. Okay, and so we have some answers as for language use, right? So yes, most people do somehow. Yeah, so well, it's sometimes, yeah, yes, or sometimes, okay, and a lot, okay, a lot with young learners, great, yeah, which, well, basically young learners probably, they consider it quite a challenging group as well, yes, beginners and young learners specifically as well, yeah, so there it's kind of difficult to go by L2 only, right? So sometimes, mostly sometimes, right? As for the concept of translanguaging, this will be our first point for discussion. So first, I'll just say a couple of words on what translanguaging is, which I'm sure you know already. Then I'll switch to the benefits of translanguaging, how we can use this technique for the benefit of our students mostly. And then I'll also speak about some caveats, yeah, some limitations, some warnings, because essentially this topic and this approach, well, not really approach, but this technique is quite controversial. Now, it has been quite controversial for a long time, and it remains that way, basically. So, as for translanguaging and its definition, it's kind of a very general definition, which says that translanguaging is the use of L1 or any other languages that the learners know. Maybe they are native languages, maybe not. Well, I put it as EFL teaching, but basically teaching any language for that matter. On the screen, you can also see a couple of books that I've used while preparing this talk, but there is quite a lot of research now, and it's mostly being done, well, go back to the question why, it's mostly being done in non-native environments, not only, because, well, as you can see, even the authors of these books, they work like in the US, in the UK, but many of the research is being done in the countries where English is not the first language, is not a one. And this is the very, very general definition, which is kind of tricky and which remains quite like an object for discussion. Why? Well, primarily, probably when anyone hears about using L1 when learning and teaching English or any other foreign language, traditionally we associate it with more or less with the grammar translation method. Yeah. We all know quite well that this method actually refers to some lessons where students learn grammar patterns, where they practice them through translation and generally learn a language through a lot of translation, which doesn't contribute to communication that much. And of course, it's been criticized quite severely for a lot of time, and probably rightly so. Yeah, so it's kind of not the most communicative approach and technique. But the point is that translanguaging does not equal grammar and translation method. It's not the same. And translanguaging now is more and more referred to as the use of L1 in English learning and teaching environments, but like it's strategic use. It's use when we understand why we are doing that, actually. What's the purpose? Either we cannot do it otherwise, or we need to reduce the cognitive load of the student, well, depending. Yeah. And basically, the widespread use of the grammar translation method, which used to be very popular and was probably it was associated with the way cultures started to interact with each other like centuries ago, and it was mostly through translation. So it's quite logical that many of the practitioners and many of the people who developed theories of language learning, they use this method. But its use and its inefficacy in many ways led to another extreme, I'd say, which actually requires that L1 is completely banned from the English language classrooms. We have this in the communicative approach, in basically anything like project-based learning, task-based learning, anything. So this is like a general principle that derives from the ideology of native speakerism. And here you can see, like, again, a very basic definition of that, which actually means that native speakers are the best models for imitating, for learning. So it's the best way to learn a language. It's to pick it up from native speakers in terms of the language itself, the pronunciation, and also culture. As a culture really used to be a very important element in learning language. And it still is to some extent, but relatively recently, let's say, things started to change. First of all, the way that we use the English language has shifted quite significantly, and it turned into lingua franca. Yeah, a language that is used for international communication for a variety of purposes. And very frequently today, we use this language to talk not to native speakers, native speaker. Of learning a language as learning it to perfection, basically. Then now we understand that many of our learners, well, unless they are going to pay, I don't know, like philologists, translators, whatever, they won't need that much, like that kind of a level. What they need is to be able to communicate and to be intelligible, essentially. To be able to function in intercultural environments. And that is why this kind of perception of language as like art that needs to be mastered like in all possible ways, it's no longer relevant for many people, at least for a lot of the learners. Another thing, which is also related to English being a lingua franca, is related to culture. And again, if native speakers were supposed to get the learners involved in their culture, in the Western culture, whatever you may call it, now, as people are more and more interacting with non-native speakers, again, the relevance of one particular culture and being able to adapt to one specific culture, maybe not the culture of one country, yeah, but of a group of countries, but still, this Western culture is, again, no longer a must. Rather, what we need is to prepare our learners to work in environments with very, very different people, with very, very different native languages. Some of them might be native speakers, some may not. That depends. And that probably, well, these are just some of the factors, but still, that has led to this shift in the perception of L1 in the classroom. Again, that doesn't mean that we need to like speak L1 all the time. It doesn't mean that we need to make our students translate all the time. Definitely not. Again, translation methods and translanguaging, they're very different. But more and more people and more researchers are looking into this issue and realize that both teachers and learners can see the benefits of translanguaging when it is applied correctly, let's say. First of all, again, one of the concepts related to native speakers was a monolingual classroom. Yes, L1 could not be used because if it is assumed that if we translate, we'll never learn to think in, well, English, L2, whatever it is. But there is one problem. And there is no specific research, not at all, that would show that actually we process different languages by different parts of the brain. And that's kind of crazy. Yeah, there are some areas in the brain, there are some regions that are responsible for processing language as a concept, producing language, interpreting a language, I don't know, discriminating between sounds, whatever that might be. But these are the areas that are responsible for language, and that means that all the languages will function more or less like in between, if I may say that, those areas. And they're all stored in the same areas of the brain. So to say that, for example, now we're working with English, so we think only by this part of the brain, and now we're speaking, you know, Chinese, and now we use this part of the brain. That's impossible. Just our brain doesn't work like that. Which is one of the arguments that is put forward by the researchers who are looking into the concept of translanguaging. And basically the main point of translingual classrooms deals with the fact that languages will also, like, always influence each other. I don't mean that they will necessarily intervene with each other, though that happens too, obviously. But they will always influence each other. And there are some benefits to it that we can potentially exploit with our students in our classrooms. Talking about that, one of the primary questions in learning, in the science of learning anything, not only language, is the issue of memory. And memory, well, here it's not a very recent definition, but still, when we memorize something, we draw on our past experiences to use this information in the present. When we learn a language, especially when we start learning a language, though not only, we do not have any background knowledge. We cannot proceed from any past experiences to learn this language, to master the new concept, the new vocabulary, grammar, etc. We don't know anything about it. And that's why learning a language is very difficult at the beginning. So probably you've also remarked that some of your students really struggle at the beginning, like A1, A2 level, kind of this. But then this process actually speeds up. So they can learn quicker. They can go through B1 plus level, B2 level much quicker than they mastered A1 and A2. Why? Because they have more background knowledge. And if they have more background knowledge, that means that they have more, let's say, concepts, associations, etc., to attach the new knowledge to, which is important. So when we say that students start learning a language, and yes, they don't know anything about this language, but they do have the knowledge of their own language. And I'm not talking only about grammar, vocabulary, sentence structure. It's just the way the language functions. And this is something that can be exploited by us as language teachers. We always say to our students that they need to reach a level where they don't need to translate in their heads, which is a great thing. And yes, this is what is expected, because if we translate in our heads, even, I'm not talking about translating word by word, but if we try to translate phrases, we'll never speak very naturally. Yeah, we'll speak very slowly and, well, whatever. This is a great piece of advice. But when we talk about low levels, about people who are starting to learn a language, for them, essentially translating is, well, if I may say that, the only way to start speaking in, like, somehow, just to start speaking. Definitely at low levels, we have a lot of drilling. Yeah, we drill phrases, we drill vocabulary, whatever, like grammar structures, etc. But the problem with drilling is that though it works, and again, it is one of the tools for sure, but drilling sometimes means that a student has to remember a phrase which they cannot understand. Like, they cannot understand how it's constructed. And that means that they won't remember it, at least not for long. And the only language that they will remember and they will be able to use in the future, it's their language, the language that they produce. Correctly, incorrectly, naturally, unnaturally, that's another story, but it is them who produce this language. And the only way to do that at low levels is to translate. And of course, there is a lot of talk around, I don't know, false friends, about warning about sounding unnatural sounding, well, just, well, non-native again. For beginners, it's kind of, well, it doesn't matter much, let's say. For them, it's important just to start building their own phrases, like somehow. And then with, like, over time, they will correct these sentences, they will make them more diverse, whatever, more natural. And that is why, of course, the benefits of translanguaging, they mostly fall onto beginners who do that anyway. So the first point, as well, you can see on the slide, is to understand that students do it anyway. They do translate in their heads, or they use dictionaries, I mean bilingual dictionaries, not those that provide definitions. So they do it anyway. And so we can teach them to do that so that these techniques didn't harm them, so that they could draw some benefits from it, but also not to overuse this method as well. Of course, yeah, beginners are those who can benefit from this most. Starting from just A0 level students who are just introduced into the language. And again, according to the classical, very classical communicative approach, teachers need to use, I don't know, gestures, well, visuals, whatever, but not to use their outline in any case. That's great, okay. But the point is that with A0 students, it's kind of impossible. Well, meaning it is possible, but that limits communication with the students very much. So of course, yeah, you can show, you can pre-teach some things, like some very common exercises, I don't know, read and answer, match the words and definitions, whatever that might be. And this is a great thing because this is something that they will see a lot. It will be repeated for sure. But otherwise, your communication with the students is very, very limited, because whatever you can say beyond those few phrases, those few words that they can understand, they just won't get you. That's why sometimes translanguaging can be used as, well, as a CCQ, if you wish, yeah. So you can check understanding of the student through translanguaging, through basically saying something, yeah, given the instruction in the English language, and then repeating it in their L1. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you might need to just sandwich the phrase. So for example, you understand that generally the phrase is familiar to the student, but there is one word, for instance, that might be not familiar. And then you sandwich, yeah, so you say everything in English, but then only this word, you can say it in L1, like in English and then in L1. And that enriches communication with the students. The same goes for explaining, well, explaining, not always explaining, but grammar rules and vocabulary. Again, ideally, we need to teach grammar and vocabulary and, well, functional language, whatnot. We need to teach it through inductive methods, through guided discovery, etc. That's where we do not really teach, we do not lecture the student, yeah, but we need just to ask some questions, give some examples, maybe visuals, etc., for the student to get this knowledge, to reach some conclusions, and to understand it by themselves. The point is, again, at low levels, it's very frequently impossible. And sometimes you will need to maybe not speak L1, but draw parallels with L1 for them to understand. If, for example, you are teaching, you know, present perfect for the very first time, a tense which has no, like, even approximate equivalence actually in Ukrainian, again, maybe you would need to use some direct instruction with elements of translanguaging in order to explain that. Because otherwise, again, if you use only like CCQs available with language available to the student, yes, they will get something, but it will be very limited, and you will not be like really sure that actually the student got what you told them. Apart from that, the students themselves, they use it naturally. They check their own understanding with you, if you wish, through L1, low-level students meaning. When they have an instruction they're not sure about, or when they have, I don't know, a sentence, a word they're not sure about, they will kind of, I don't know, almost subconsciously translate it to check their own understanding, even if they understand it correctly. And it's kind of okay to confirm that for them. Without, again, without maybe even switching to their L1 yourself, basically. It may be unnecessary. Then there is a problem of vocabulary, teaching vocabulary. Normally, again, classically, when we teach vocabulary, when we teach some specific vocabulary, it's our target language for the lesson, it's one thing. But when there is some language that just emerges during the lesson, yeah, because when it's your target language, okay, you prepare some, again, visuals, gestures, you know, contexts, whatever, that can illustrate this vocabulary quite well. But there is also emergent vocabulary, the vocabulary that they might want to use in their, in their speaking, in the production phase, for example. But there is some vocabulary that they hear in the recordings or that they read in a text, and they need to know what that is. And classically, you should do what? You should explain. Yeah, you should explain that word to the student. Of course, yeah, sometimes you can just say that if it's not that relevant, you can say just like skip it or try to get it from the context, for instance, which is not always possible. And if not, you're supposed to explain that in their L2. So in English, for instance. At low levels, it's kind of impossible, again, because they won't understand the explanation. And sometimes even at, I don't know, like pre-intermediate levels or something, it might be tricky because you understand that to explain this word or this phrase, you need to involve some even more complicated language potentially. So again, it might be tricky. And there is nothing wrong with, with actually translating that. If it is, again, if you don't see any other option, the point is not to make it your first option and start speaking like just in L1 all the time, not that. But if there is no other option, if you understand that just translating it will be beneficial to the student from the point of view of the cognitive load, that it will be just easier for them to understand and we will not like overload them, then maybe it's kind of worth a shot. If we talk about, again, the functioning of our brain, sometimes it happens, I'd say that to students of all levels, but to beginners specifically, when they have a word or a phrase or something, and they just tell us that we kind of understand what that means, but could you still translate it for us? Because essentially they understand it from the context. For example, they've listened to a recording or they read something or they watched a video, whatever, like they understand it from the context. But in order to be able to really use this word or this phrase or whatever, they need some kind of an anchor. They need to differentiate it from other words, other phrases, other concepts. And sometimes they can only do it through their L1. It's quite frequent with abstract concepts where they kind of understand, but they can potentially attach these words to quite different words in L1. And they're not sure which would be like more precise, maybe. Maybe they just, like, there is no such concept in their L1, and then it's even more difficult. So again, translating or like again sandwiching, that might be good for them, like for them to understand it better, for them to understand it more precisely, to understand what that is about. Of course, if we talk about school contexts, L1 can be used for like classroom management, etc. Well, of course you can do that too, because well, if you really need to make sure that your students understand, yeah, to do that in L1, like some just spontaneous things that emerge during the class and they're related to classroom management, you could use again L1, like not pure. Normally we do not use like L1 purely, yeah. So it will be some kind of sandwiching, but still, yeah. So you can, and sometimes you just don't have another choice but to use L1 somehow. Of course, yeah, you need to minimize it for sure, but still. Another thing about beginners, and it's also related now not only to beginners, but to some specific stages in language learning. And first, of course, we start with beginners, but then we can also talk about something like B1 plus students, B2 students, which encounter, well, they encounter the so-called plateau. And translanguaging can help them to kind of get unstuck. What I wanted to say by this, first of all, students, beginner students, for sure they do lack confidence, and it is kind of scary for them to try and start speaking. They understand that, well, in their own language they can express any idea, they can do that beautifully, stylistically appropriately, etc. But they cannot do the same in their L2, and this is normal. At their level, at, I don't know, like A1, A2 level, it's okay that they cannot do this. However, this idea is pretty uncomfortable for them, which is again logical. And for that purpose, you can actually help maybe them to build their confidence through translanguaging and a little bit of translation even. For instance, very frequently they just go in, well, if we talk about beginner students, not like B1 plus for now, they just get into the mode, I don't know how to say that, I cannot do that yet, etc. And the point is that sometimes they can't, but sometimes they can do that. And in that case, for example, you could ask your students, again, in English, like, what do you want to say? Yeah. When they answer in their L1, you can simplify their idea to the point where they can express it. Maybe they won't be able to say all of that, yeah, or maybe they won't be able to like say it very, again, beautifully, quote unquote. But you understand that they can, actually. And you can return this sentence, this phrase, this idea to them in their L1 and to make them translate. And in that way, it builds their confidence. They realize, first of all, they realize that they can actually say that. Again, maybe not entirely, maybe not very correctly, but they can. And that gets them into the habit of, well, speaking, let's say. And it also shows them that they need to simplify things. Because if you just suggest doing that, like as a strategy or something, they just, well, in most cases, they will answer that they can't. Yeah, they cannot put it in simple words, but in fact they can. And that gets them into the habit of using the resources, the linguistic resources available to them to express their idea, well, somehow, for now. Yeah, for that moment, express it somehow. which is already great and which builds confidence among the students for sure. Especially, well, again, at those levels where they're not like able to speak. I mean, they cannot express everything they want. But here there is also danger, because when at low levels, they try to simplify their language. They try to simplify it, well, again, just to express their idea at least somehow. That becomes a habit which can be pretty risky when they go to higher levels. Because, essentially, when that has become their habit, they will do it even when they don't need to. Even when they already have enough of linguistic resources to say or to write, whatever, something more complicated. They will still oversimplify their language. And sometimes that really happens. And it's one of the reasons, one of the factors that determine that kind of linguistic plateau, if we can call it that way. Yeah, when students at levels of B1 plus, B2, etc., they, on the one hand, they understand that they can express a lot, if not everything they want. Again, whether it will be always correct or not, that's another story. But they can communicate pretty efficiently already. And on the other hand, they cannot see that much of progress. Well, not that much of progress. They do not see a quick progress anymore. Yeah, the kind of progress that they could witness at low levels. Now they do not see that, which is, again, logical, because they need to put more effort into it, and it requires maybe more time as well. And considering that they have this habit of oversimplifying their language when they speak, and they can express their ideas like that. Yeah, so that works for them. What probably could be done in order to get them, again, give them a new habit, which is relevant for them at that moment, is to do kind of the same, but when you hear their idea in English, you could, again, bounce it back at them in their L1, but in a more complicated way. So ask them to say the same, but in more complicated words. By modeling, not just saying, make it more complicated, yeah, or introduce this and these words. No, you can just actually model these possible things, possible solutions that they could exploit if they want to make their language, C1 level, C2 level. Again, by modeling this, by doing this over time, they will be probably more aware of what they could say or what they should control, actually, and how they should control their language in order to the higher level. Of course, yeah, if we talk about adult learners, but business people, sometimes they just reach a level where they don't need more. Yeah, they can already communicate, it's enough for them. But if we're talking about schools, if we're talking about universities, yeah, so the students, they continue learning. And frequently they learn for some kind of exams. And this, feeling of plateau is pretty uncomfortable. And they don't quite know how to, what they should do to see more progress in themselves. Because on the one hand, they already have a pretty good base. On the other, they understand a lot usually. Yeah, so they have a pretty good, maybe even C1, C2 vocabulary and grammar and everything, but in passive. Yeah, so it's a passive condition of that language. They can understand it when hearing, when reading, but they do not produce it in their own language. And, well, translanguaging in this way can also help them overcome that kind of a plateau, which is, well, a good thing too. Sometimes even, even translation, like as part of a home task from time to time. Some really, really complicated sentences, well, not sentences, texts. Even translating those can be quite good, in order, again, to encourage them and to show them how they can, how they can switch to a higher, also register, not only a language level, but also register. Because in the L1 situations, they do it naturally. Yeah, they switch to the necessary degree of formality, so they adjust the style the way they need. And they do it unconsciously. But in L2, probably they sometimes need something more specific and something more explicit. And you can also, of course, you can explicitate that with writing tasks for sure. But some kind of, again, translanguaging, sandwiching can be quite good as well for that purpose. Without overdoing it, of course. And so, of course, it shouldn't be like, I don't know, 30% of your lesson. Of course not. But when you see that you can really improve, obviously improve the, well, not you, but the student can improve what they said. Yeah, and you can really model it for them in L1. Like, why not? Probably the third point, which is also very important, and it's not that relevant for schools, though it is. Well, now it's becoming more and more relevant because, many of the schools and classrooms, they adopt CLIL methodologies. And in CLIL, CLIL basically refers to teaching subjects in the English language, in the English language, again, in L2, whatever that is. Mostly now we're talking about English, and there they might encounter some pretty complicated concepts. Complicated concepts, texts, materials, just whatever they are. And sometimes, again, they need some kind of translanguaging in order to understand the concept better. Like maybe translation of this concept, or maybe like a brief explanation in their L1, just to understand it. Where it's not a question of language itself, but it's rather about mediating concepts. It's not about linguistic competence proper, but even at the level of, I don't know, discussing texts, discussing, again, text, videos, audios, whatever they are, discussing that with elements of L1, depending on the level. And the same actually happens with some intercultural differences. Sometimes at the cultural level, we encounter some concepts, some ideas, some phenomena that are very different and that you cannot find in your reality, actually, in your culture. There is no equivalent, not only in the language, which is, obviously there is no equivalent, but there is no equivalent even in the culture. And then you could exploit your language because it becomes the only resource, the only, again, background knowledge that they can use that they could use only to interpret it somehow, to understand it somehow. And that could be good as well. And as for intercultural competences, actually translanguaging can be pretty useful. Maybe not when we are talking about classrooms with people with the same L1, though that too, kind of. But especially with classrooms where people do not know, all of the people or some of the people do not have a shared L1. And there, on the one hand, essentially English becomes for them the only shared language. On the other, they can help each other understand different things, different cultural concepts through the lens of their L1. And this can be very helpful because they can use their background knowledge from their L1 in order to understand the new concept better themselves, but also to help maybe other students to understand it better. There is also, well, maybe counterintuitive situation. And, well, I'm not sure that I can call it a skill to develop because, well, it would be strange. But now in lingua franca, English as lingua franca environments, when mostly non-native speakers interact with each other, essentially, sometimes you need to be able to communicate at a very high level. And this is what we kind of wish for all of our students, for sure. And this is what will help them to function in any setting. But sometimes they will interact with people of a lower level. And they will need to adapt their language, which is not native to them, but they will have to adapt it even to even a lower level. Again, whether it's a question of developing a skill, I don't know. But again, our students need to be ready for that. They need to be ready for that. They need to understand that they will have to play essentially with language in all of the ways. Sometimes they need to show all of their competence, but sometimes they just need to be understood. And if they have another, again, let's say shared language with the person who they're talking to, sometimes maybe they will have to involve even that for this person to understand. If the person is, well, again, of a lower level. Or if, for example, if students are working, well, students, for English language learners, let's say, who are also working in some kind of an IT sphere, for example, or in another sphere which is pretty much saturated with internationalized words, yeah, they might need to be aware that they can use that and exploit those words in order to, again, other people, also for other people to understand them, in order to be understood partially. And in fact, translanguaging now, it's something that is happening pervasively. Like in business and industries, whatever can help to communicate, to work through a problem, whatever helps to do it fast, to make it more efficient, then it should work. And it should be used anyway. Because actually this is the culture of English as lingua franca, and business English as lingua franca including. And again, whether we can call this things skills for us to develop in our students, well, I don't know. But at least we should make them aware of these tendencies and help them realize that banning L1 completely, well, it's not a solution, and sometimes it can be pretty harmful for communication, though it might seem, well, quite a paradox. So translanguaging has a lot of benefits. And it is quite popular now, not only in learning a language, but just in functioning in this language. And for sure, it remains controversial. Its use remains controversial, and I'd say that really it requires much more research into what works, what doesn't work, what actually has maybe kind of an opposite effect. And only like looking at our classroom, looking at our students, we can understand what is the optimal, let's say, proportion of L1 use. Of course, ideally, the higher the level of our students is, the less translanguaging they will require. And actually, as some research has shown, students, they're pretty much aware of that. Yeah, they are aware that they need to use their L1 as little as possible. But completely banning it, especially at low levels, but not only, well, it's probably not an answer. And it's not like what their brain does just naturally. So these are probably the most important caveats concerning translanguaging, yeah, that we should not overdo it. We should not, let's say, go back to this kind of translation methods, which are not effective. So because we aim at creating people who are communicating efficiently, yeah, who are communicating freely, but still, we need to make them able to use any resources at hand. And if translanguaging can, I don't know, reduce their cognitive load, yeah, if it can understand a certain grammar structure or a word or phrase more effectively, more like, well, just easier, basically, and really like to make it more precise, to give them a more precise image in their mind, then why not? If they can use their language, well, their L1, if they have a shared L1, then if they use it while working in groups or pairs in order to help each other, then why not? If when they are starting starting to speak, and they sandwich phrases, oh, they start speaking English, then they switch to L1, then back, and well, again, why not if it helps them to build their confidence? Because those sandwich words and phrases, they will disappear at a certain point in time. But the general logics of constructing phrases, constructing sentences, it will remain. And it will work for their benefit and their interests. So the idea of translanguaging actually, and our use of it, and our, let's say, presentation of it as a learning strategy should basically rely on balance. But if it allows us not to frustrate our students like too much, yeah, not to overload them. If we understand that it is very, like, either it is, well, it is impossible to do something in any other way, yeah, like to give an instruction or something, we understand that just, well, it's impossible, then maybe translanguaging is an answer. If we can, again, use it for our students to get better results, then maybe translanguaging is an answer. But again, we do need more research, more practice, and more actually practical ideas as for how to use it. Yeah, how to use it, what works, and what could actually harm our students and well, lock them back into their L1. So probably these are just some prospects for future, well, research for us as practitioners, etc. And well, I thank you very much for being here today with us. And if you have any questions, any comments, you're welcome to put them in the chat. I hope maybe I'll see if the facilitators have already put something in the chat box. Well, we have a question. Does it happen that you can't recollect a word when people ask you? What should we do in such situations? Well, I'd say that, well, that might happen, of course, why not? But I'd say in most cases, either you will be able to paraphrase the sentence and help for them. Or if it is really like some specific word, if it's a term, for instance, you just say that, well, I don't know, and let us check it together. Why not? Yeah, because there are some things really, and that happened to me too, when these are like some terms, legal terms, engineering terms, and well, really, I don't know how that is called. I'm not even sure that I know what that means, like in Ukrainian, for that matter. So you just say that, and well, that's it. But as for the rest, normally you'll be able to paraphrase it. I don't know, for me, it's always like that. Even if you don't remember the exact word, it still can help the student to express this idea. So I don't think that, well, but then again, it depends. All right, do we have, okay, we have a comment also from Maria. It can take much more time than you have. I don't really get what can take more time. You mean translanguaging or the opposite, using only L2? Because, well, if we talk about L1 use, well, translanguaging, then it actually saves time in many ways. But that's also kind of a trap, because we need to understand that when we use translanguaging, we use it for the benefit of our students, not to save our time, not to make it easier for us, but for the student. And then again, that depends on the situation. And if we say that, well, and as for you using translanguaging, of course, it's always quicker. Again, and whether it's better, that's another question, and that depends on probably us as specialists in language. Okay, well, do we have any other questions? Maybe our moderators can help me. Do we have anything else? As for the questions, maybe I've missed something in the process. Okay, well, if not, then, well, I thank you very much. And again, thank you for being with us. Hopefully the information was a little bit useful. Again, these are just some of my ideas. And if you have any of yours, then probably it's something to be discussed and maybe even experimented on as part of some future research. Thank you very much, and, well, have a nice evening.
Вітаю! Вітаю колеги, вітаю глядачі. Доброго дня. Підкажіть, будь ласка, чи добре мене чутно, чи говорити трошки громче, бо я можу тихо розмовляти. Hello. Так, вітаю. Дякую велике за те, що приєднались до конференції сьогодні, зокрема для того, щоб послухати мене. У мене сьогодні дебют в якості спікерки, тому if I could ask you, please, not to judge me harshly. Я сьогодні хочу поговорити з вами про впровадження змін у моделі стосунків між вчителем та учнем у навчальному процесі. Я підготувала свою презентацію державної мови, але будуть деякі моменти, які будуть все ж таки англійською. І перед тим, як я розпочну, я хотіла представитись і трошки розповісти про себе. Мене звати Анастасія, мені 24 роки. Я викладаю англійську вже майже 2 роки, проте це не є моєю основною діяльністю. І я сподіваюся, що це тимчасово. За освітою я взагалі фінансист, і вже 3 роки я працюю фултайм аудитором. І моя робота має безпосередній зв'язок з англійською, плюс освіту я отримала англійською. І також я проживала за кордоном багато років, тому маю там друзів. Так або інакше, дуже багато сфер мого життя пов'язані з англійською мовою, плюс я дуже люблю взаємодіяти з людьми, тому я вирішила викладати англійську. І через свій бекграунд та свою освіту в мене основний фокус викладання – це бізнес-англійська та розмовна англійська. Я так розумію, що дуже багато з вас – це фултайм вчителі. Було б дуже цікаво побачити в чаті ваш бекграунд і який у вас фокус при викладанні мови, тому було б круто познайомитись трошки ближче. Повертаючись до теми моєї презентації сьогодні, я пропоную переглянути план виступу. Хотіла б почати з порівняння 2 моделей навчання. Це, власне, традиційне навчання англійської мови в школі та навчання в онлайн-режимі. Ми тут розглянемо the worst practices шкільної освіти, для того, щоб не повторювати ці помилки, а навпаки, на їх основі зрозуміти, як створити для учня safe environment та подарувати унікальний досвід процесу навчання із задоволенням. Потім ми розглянемо деякі tips, які я використовую на своїх заняттях для того, щоб зруйнувати цю ієрархічну відстань між вчителем та учнем, яка могла зберегтись з її шкільних часів. Я все ж таки вірю, що для досягнення максимально ефективного результату необхідно будувати модель товариських стосунків і створювати комфортні, максимально комфортні обставини для учнів. Так що розділ номер 2 буде саме про це. Далі я хотіла поділитись практиками, що я використовую для того, щоб адаптуватись під вподобання учнів у вивченні мови. Учень завжди приходить з певним запитом, є якісь параметри у вивченні мови, які цікавлять більше, які цікавлять менше. Наша задача – зробити на цьому фокус. Ці запити також можуть змінюватись, і тому я вважаю, що вчителю необхідно бути flexible в цьому питанні і налаштовувати матеріал під будь-які зміни. Також ми обговоримо мотивацію, як її підтримувати на належному рівні і допомагати учням у випадку, якщо мотивація втрачається. Last but not the least, хочу поділитись корисними безкоштовними онлайн-ресурсами, які я використовую для надання матеріалу, для виконання завдань, вправ на заняттях або для домашніх завдань. Так, як я і казала, хочу почати з розглядання 2 моделей навчання. Я хочу тут зауважити, що я в будь-якому випадку не хочу образити шкільних вчителів англійської мови. Я робила цей аналіз на базі своїх власних спогадів зі шкільних часів, і я, насправді, маю більш зауважень до шкільної системи освіти взагалі, ніж, зокрема, до вчителів. В цьому порівняльному аналізі я відокремила дві основні проблеми шкільної освіти. Це ієрархічний розподіл між вчителем та учнем і категорична система оцінювання, яка, на мою думку, не завжди може бути об'єктивною. Вочевидь, що при проведенні онлайн-уроків ми хочемо максимально відійти від цієї історії і чітко дати зрозуміти учню, що двійки в щоденнику за будь-яку помилку, вони залишились в далекому майбутньому, минулому, Мені здається, що коли учень приймає рішення розпочати або відновити вивчення англійської, підсвідомо все ж таки зберігається певний страх зі шкільних часів, що за кожну помилку людину будуть якось пригнічувати. Треба максимально намагатись позбавити учня цього сприйняття та віддалитись від цієї моделі. Але детальніше про це ми поговоримо трошки пізніше. Які ще є основні відмінності від шкільної системи навчання та персоналізованих онлайн-уроків? Це зацікавленість вчителя в результатах своїх учнів, це адаптивна програма навчання і це мотивація для покращення навичків. Коли я навчалась в школі, ми мали чіткий план, вчитель по цьому плану відпрацював, оцінки поставив і пішов додому. Які аспекти навчання більш цікаві, які менш цікаві, питання мотивації, які моменти потрібно пропрацювати, це все залишалось поза кадром. Знову ж таки, я кажу виключно зі свого власного досвіду, я насправді розумію, що дуже важко персоналізувати програму під потребу кожного учня у шкільному класі, але можна виявляти загальну зацікавленість, тобто там, проводити якісь опитувальники, наприклад, або на базі загального результату, там, де було найбільше помилок, пропрацьовувати певні моменти. Ще момент, який є відсутнім в онлайн-навчанні, але про який важко забути зі шкільних часів, мабуть, це якась внутрішня конкуренція або порівняння твоїх знань зі знаннями та навичками твоїх однокласників. Звичайно, в онлайн-навчанні вже ми з таким не зіштовхуємось, але мені здається, що десь підсвідомо це відчуття все ще залишається в учнів, тому вони завжди прагнуть і намагаються все сказати максимально вірно та коректно, і дуже за це переживають. Ми працюємо на результат, і це те, що потрібно давати розуміти учню. І найголовніша конкуренція, що учень наразі має, це самим собою. Треба дізнатись більше, ніж я знав вчора, треба вивчити більше слів, отримати більше впевненості тощо. Ми відходимо від тих спогадів про порівняння наших можливостей з можливостями інших людей та налаштовуємось на продуктивну та приємну роботу. І цей аналіз, мені здається, що він насправді працює в дві сторони. Ми можемо взяти найгірші практики шкільної системи і не користуватись ними в онлайн-навчанні. І так само вчителі в школі можуть робити фокус більше на учнях і їх потребах. І я дуже сильно сподіваюся, що наразі шкільна модель навчання рухається в цьому напрямку і стає більш сучасною та адаптованою під потреби учнів. Як все ж таки боротись із цією сучасною ієрархією та певним розподілом між вчителем та учнем? Перше, з чим я зіштовхуюсь на своїх уроках, це синдром відмінника. Через те, що більше фокус на розмовній англійській, плюс це є основний запит в учнів наразі, саме навчитись лексично та граматично коректно спілкуватись. І коли ми починаємо над цим працювати, я відчуваю невпевненість з боку учнів в тому, щоб почати говорити, і це, мабуть, відбувається через якийсь страх зробити помилку. У мене діє політика того, що чим більше слів ми не знаємо, тим більше в нас спектру для того, щоб дізнати щось нове та розвинутись у коректному напрямку. Я так називаю це заохочення помилок. Учню потрібно чітке розуміння, що помилятися або чогось не знати – це не трагедія, і це жодним чином не вказує на те, що людина якось не здатна вивчити мову. Навпаки, ми масштабуємо обсяги того, що ми можемо дізнатись. У вивченні будь-якої мови, мені здається, немає межі для досконалості. І навіть існує такий жарт, що, коли вже та англійська закінчиться, і коли настане той день, коли я прокинуся, буду знати її на 100%. Ніколи. Тому що мова жива, мова розвивається, і ми розвиваємось разом з нею. Навіть вчителі можуть робити помилки або чогось не знати, і це абсолютно нормально. На уроках повинен бути safe space, де можна вільно розмовляти, і в жодному разі, учень буде розуміти, що в жодному разі його не будуть лаяти за помилку або там кидатись підручниками, як це було в моєму досвіді. Окей, як все ж таки розговорити учня, якщо попередні ствердження на нього не подіяли? Все просто, мені здається, просто треба почати розпитувати про його інтереси. Коли людина розповідає про те, що їй подобається, про те, чим вона живе, вона розкривається, і вже немає такого сильного фокусу на тому, щоб сказати все абсолютно коректно, граматично, і там, не дай Боже, зробити помилку. На базі цього, по-перше, можна краще дізнатись свого учня, якщо у вас one-on-one уроки. Також можна дізнатись багато нової інформації. Наприклад, в мене учні всі працюють в різних сферах, мають різні хобі. Мені завжди дуже цікаво послухати про їхнє життя. І це нам допомагає зблизитись і дарує відчуття комфорту. Для того, щоб, власне, відбувалась робота, як ми пропрацьовуємо помилки, я роблю помітки під час розповіді, і потім ми на них фокусуємося і пропрацьовуємо, як можна було б сказати краще, як можна було б сказати по-іншому. Тобто, коли людина живе своєю історією на емоціях, розповідає щось про свій день, звичайно, що не треба це переривати, треба послухати уважно і потім дуже обережно зробити певні коментарі. Також треба намагатись знайти спільні точки взаємодії, спільні інтереси. Таким чином вдається побудувати діалог, де кожен може виражати свої думки, почуття тощо. Ми можемо обговорювати новини, тренди, книжки, музику, фільми. І тут вже з точки зору навчального процесу задіються не тільки спікінг, але і лісенінг, тому що учень слухає викладача і намагається пропрацювати і зрозуміти ту інформацію, яка тільки що була надана. Тобто це насправді, якщо в нас фокус на розмовній англійській, абсолютно корисно і важливо. Тому що при взаємодії за кордоном або при робочих процесах, звичайно, людина буде не тільки говорити, але й слухати, і потрібно розуміти, що їй кажуть. Головна ідея двох попередніх пунктів – це органічне навчання, коли під час дружньої розмови відбувається фактична робота. Тобто відбувається побудування товариських стосунків, скажімо так, але при цьому зберігається взаємоповага, і це дуже тонкий баланс, де ви можете дружити, і учень відчуває себе досить відкрито по стосунку до вчителя і по стосунку до, власне, процесу навчального. І навпаки, тобто ви можете почувати себе комфортно в вашому studying environment, але при цьому є взаємоповага, немає жодного панібратства, і з цим можна далі працювати. Швидка реакція на потреби учнів теж є ключовим моментом. В мене завжди відкрито декілька вкладок, підручників. На початку уроку я даю учню вибір, на чому ми хочемо сфокусуватись сьогодні. Це може бути reading, speaking, listening, grammar, що завгодно. Звичайно, ми намагаємось не відходити від обговореного напрямку. Наприклад, якщо це бізнес-англійська, то ми розглядаємо статті, слухаємо інтерв'ю, якісь бізнес-подкасти тощо. Тобто працюємо в межах загальної концепції. Але учень завжди має право обрати, на чому ми сфокусуємо сьогодні, для того, щоб процес проходив з зацікавленістю та максимально ефективно. Звичайно, відбуваються такі ситуації, коли учень каже, що хоче на 100% сфокусуватись на розмовній англійській, а та граматика взагалі нікому не потрібна, і ніхто не користується, вона не цікава. А ми розуміємо, що всі аспекти мови, вони все ж таки взаємопов'язані між собою, тому без граматичних знань не вийде коректного спікінгу. І це важливо донести до учня і органічно внести в програму. Тобто пояснення того, що я розумію, що тобі хочеться балакати, не хочеться слухати нудні правила, але все ж таки ти ж хочеш коректно розмовляти, тому базові знання граматики, вони все ж таки необхідні. В мене були випадки, коли взагалі загальна концепція змінювалася на початку року. Людина приходила, казала на початку року, типу, окей, бізнес поки не цікавий, давай якісь загальні знання. Теж важливо швидко відреагувати, бути готовим до такої ситуації, мати ресурси, підручники, напрацювання, щоб дуже швидко змінити напрям, скажімо так, і бути готовим до будь-якого change of heart of your student. Дуже важливо чути, які ресурси учню подобаються найбільше, які подобаються найменше, які відчуття по важкості, де нам потрібно погратись з рівнями. Деякі мої учні відчувають себе достатньо комфортно для того, щоб змінювати матеріали, над якими ми працюємо. Я дуже відкрита до цих коментарів. Це відбувається, типу, я хочу фокус на цьому, я хочу фокус на тому, зараз мені це не цікаво. Окей, ми рухаємось далі. Коли про це не кажуть, я завжди поточнюю, перепитую, наскільки було цікаво, чи підходить цей рівень по важкості, які відчуття, чи все було зрозуміло. До речі, в плані пояснення граматики дуже важливо знаходити різні підходи до пояснень, тому що я зіштовхнулася з тим, що я можу пояснити, і учень це не зрозуміє, тому потрібно тут ще знаходити інші якісь шляхи для того, щоб донести це в такому персоналізованому форматі, щоб саме цій людині це стало зрозуміло через певний підхід. Тому ми можемо повертатись декілька разів до того, щоб подивитись якусь тему, розібрати якусь граматику, і ми будемо повертатись при необхідності стільки разів, стільки потрібно, аж поки учень не відчує себе достатньо впевнено і все не зрозуміє. Знову ж таки, ми не маємо жодних рамок у програмі, в нас існує безліч ресурсів, підходів, цими активами ми мусимо користуватись. Мені здається, що навіть не тільки вчителі, які фрілансери, як я, і взагалі вчителі в шкільній системі теж можуть запроваджувати такі певні, я думаю, що це вже відбувається насправді, але було б круто, якщо б цього було все ж таки більше якихось таких нових цікавих підходів. Так, Абсолютно важливий момент на моїх уроках – це можливість жартувати. Я чула, що сьогодні вже одна спікерка говорила про гумор, і ви це обговорювали в чаті. Це дійсно неймовірно важливо, тому що це дарує відчуття легкості, самоналаштування та класної взаємодії. Якщо ви почнете жартувати зі своїми учнями, звичайно, це повинно бути в контексті, це одразу подарує комфорт. Мої учні надсилають мені меми англійською, про англійську, ми можемо посміятися з цього навіть не під час уроків, знову ж таки, повертаючись, це все побудова взаємодії. У нас загальна стратегія – це побудувати класний контакт з людиною для того, щоб було максимально комфортно отримувати нові знання. В нас з'являється синергія та ще більше точок дотику з учнем. В нас з однією ученицею навіть існує вже inside joke, ви можете його побачити на слайді, це мем з людиною-павуком. Вона називає ці слова неіснуючими, що взагалі їх придумали, і їм ніхто насправді не користується. І вони її трошки лякали через те, що вони між собою схожі. Але ми цей бар'єр перебороли, і насправді вона зрозуміла, що нічого страшного в тих словах не було, і вільно зараз ними користується. Але про те, як руйнувати ці психологічні бар'єри і дарувати більше впевненості в своїх знаннях, я трошки пізніше вам розповім. Зараз пропоную детальніше розглянути питання фідбеку та підлаштування під потреби учнів. Для себе я виділила два підходи. Це загальний підхід та проактивний. Як я вже казала, при загальному підході ми дотримуємось тієї концепції, яку ми визначили на початку нашого шляху, та працюємо в її межах. Проте необхідно дотримуватись вивчення всіх аспектів мови, але якщо робити це органічно та в меншому співвідношенні, це не буде грузити учня, граматика грузить усіх, це просто ніхто її не хоче вчити. Але якщо це так тихонечко робити, це буде майже непомітно. При зміні фокусу необхідно одразу відреагувати на нові потреби, як я це вже зазначала. Тут на чому я хочу сфокусуватись, це інтерактивність занять. Звичайно, через те, що я викладаю переважно онлайн, для мене це маст використовувати інтерактивні ресурси. Але якщо бути щирою, я грішу іноді підручниками, тому що є підручники, в яких класна структура, оптимальне пояснення граматики, цікаві тексти, тому іноді підручниками все ж таки користуюсь. Проте я завжди намагаюсь зберігати баланс у використанні підручників та інтерактивних ресурсів. Наприклад, всі вправи ми робимо виключно в інтерактивному режимі, ніхто не пише. І ті ресурси, які я використовую, я покажу трошки згодом. Також для себе я визначила проактивний підхід. А саме, я почала колекціонувати фідбек за допомогою Google форм. Це анонімна форма, тому учень може почувати себе максимально комфортно заповнюючи її, а наша задача отримати максимально щирий та правдивий фідбек, навіть якщо там будуть моменти, які нас можуть засмутити, але ми будемо розуміти, над чим потрібно працювати далі. В моїй Google формі, яку я нещодавно надсилала, я задавала питання, дуже базові насправді, ви можете придумати свої, в мене було що вам подобається найбільше, що вам подобається найменше, чи відчувається більше впевненості у використанні мови, чи дарують вам заняття мотивацію, який у вас рівень задоволення. І дуже цікавий пункт був це, щоб пропозиції по покращенню майбутньому, щоб ви бачили, що я могла б додати до наших уроків. І таким чином в мене з'явилось розуміння, чи ми рухаємось у правильному напрямку і змогла сколекціонувати влучні ідеї. Наприклад, одна з моїх учениць запропонувала влаштувати міні-спікінг-клаб між моїми учнями, і це дуже класна ідея, тому що в мене учні всі приблизно знаходяться на одному рівні, і всі дорослі, і було б цікаво їх між собою познайомити, і щоб вони поділилися ідеями, змогли поспілкуватись, познайомитися, ми створили таке міні-ком'юніті, скажімо так, тому планую цим скоро зайнятися. Питання мотивації. Питання мотивації теж є доволі критичним. В жодному випадку учень не має відчувати, що в нього нічого не виходить, і взагалі то дурацька англійська з мільйоном правил і ще з 1 мільйоном виключень. Що я роблю для того, щоб цього не сталося? Ми проводимо регулярні рев'ю зробленої роботи. Після кожного правилу тест. Після кожного прочитаного тексту чек на розуміння матеріалу. Якщо щось було нове або не до кінця сприйнялось, ми повертаємось до цього питання, пропрацьовуємо його знову і робимо повторний чек, який у 100% випадків вказує на позитивний результат. І це дуже важливо потім відзначити. Постійно підкреслювати факт того, що певні речі, які учень не знав ще годину тому, зараз він вже може вільно використовувати. Якісь слова, що були нові декілька уроків тому, зараз вже знаходяться в лексичному запасі, у обіході. Всі проміжні результати спочатку відзначаю я, а потім поступово вже з'являється у учня реалізація, що ой, клас, а я цього не знав, і я не міг цього сказати, я боявся це використовувати. Зараз я дуже вільно спілкуюсь на цю тему. Можемо повертатись до вже вивченого матеріалу, накладати на ці знання нові і робити такі комбо-перевірки. Це більше дає розуміння, що пройдений матеріал чітко відклався у голові. Тобто, наприклад, якщо ми сьогодні пройшли Present Simple, а на наступному уроці ми пройшли Present Continuous, то на третьому уроці вже там будуть речення на переклад both Present Simple з використанням і Present Simple, і Present Continuous, для того, щоб учень розумів, що те, що ми вивчили позавчора, все ще пам'ятається. Також учню важливо розуміти, на якому рівні він знаходиться, і будь-який зріст, будь-який рух у вірному напрямку завжди відзначається. Розуміння, що ми дійшли до точки Б і готові вже рухатись до точки С, дуже мотивує. Якщо учень на рівні B1 читає текст B2 і спокійно сприймає цей матеріал, це потрібно зазначати, що зараз ми прочитали B2. Якщо general рівень пересунувся на одну сходинку нагору, то ми взагалі це святкуємо. Однозначно необхідні коментарі, похвала для того, щоб учень розумів, що він все зробив правильно. Якщо учень почуває, що він щось недостатньо знає або робить, ми проговорюємо ці почуття, згадуємо, який вже шлях був пройдений, та пропрацьовуємо момент, який був незрозумілий. Дуже круто, коли є певні речі, які лякають учня, але правильний підхід у вивченні такого матеріалу дарує пересилення цього страху. І коли з'являється результат, це є найсильніша мотивація. І також, коли у вас вже є налаштування класної взаємодії, і ви щиро вірите в результат своїх учнів, то і вони теж в це повірять. Так, і, власне, корисні онлайн-ресурси, якими я хотіла поділитись, це ті, що я використовую найбільше. Live Worksheets, British Council і testenglish.com. Поділіться, будь ласка, можливо, щось з цього є знайомим для вас, може, щось ви використовуєте на своїх уроках. Live worksheets. Тут я беру найбільше завдань для домашньої роботи. Це дуже зручно, тому що, по-перше, це інтерактивно, тут не потрібно нічого писати, тут потрібно або обрати правильну відповідь, або співвіднести коректні варіанти, definition of the word тощо. Тому виконання цих вправ у учня більш все-таки зацікавленості, ніж писати щось від руки. Worksheets. Нам потрібно обрати вкладочку, коли ми переходимо на веб-сайт. Ми можемо фільтрувати пошуки різним шляхом. Наприклад, якщо нас цікавить якась певна граматична тема, ми можемо вбити її сюди, ми можемо вказати вік нашого учня, ми можемо засортувати за найбільш популярними, найостаннішими точно, і потім ми нажимаємо Apply. Чим ще дуже корисний цей ресурс? Тим, що ми можемо побачити, для якого рівня яке домашнє завдання найбільш підходить. Тобто в нас тут є pre-intermediate, третій рік навчання, elementary тощо. Здавалось би, present simple, але ж все ж таки є певна градація важкості виконання вправ present simple, тому це дуже корисно розуміти, для якого рівня яка вправа буде підходити найбільше. British Council це взагалі мій one love, тому що це, по-перше, британська англійська, тут дуже круті акценти. По-друге, тут дуже багато різних матеріалів. Наприклад, є бізнес-англійська, так як я викладаю бізнес-англійську, для мене це ресурс дуже і дуже корисний. В бізнес-англійській є подкасти, є статті, є інтерв'ю, є відео, тобто ми працюємо абсолютно по темі нашої концепції, і, знову ж таки, є розподіл на рівні, що дуже корисно, можна обрати певний рівень, і в залежності від цього вже будуть якісь належні вправи. Також можна обрати skills, я з цим теж дуже багато працюю. Тут є listening, reading, writing and speaking. Знову ж таки, йде розбивка на рівні, і там вже більш загальні якісь теми для обговорення з учнем, тобто це вже не бізнес, це вже щось таке general, але це теж дуже цікаво, тому що вони роблять дуже класні відоси, які можна потім обговорити. Є завдання, є preparation, є всі лексика. Дуже і дуже рекомендую. І testenglish.com корисний ресурс, тому що тут ми можемо, знову ж таки, обрати якийсь аспект мови, який нас цікавить найбільше. Це або grammar, або listening, або reading, use of English writing, use of English speaking, так? І від цього вже відштовхувати, в залежності від того, що нам потрібно. Я на testenglish.com особисто користуюсь граматикою exercises. Зазвичай там 3 різних вправи, які йдуть по рівню важкості по наростанню, і ми можемо певну тему розглянути, виконати вправо. Якщо учню щось не зрозуміло, тут є explanation. Наприклад, якщо я даю домашку по testenglish.com, ми обсудили якусь граматичну тему попередньо, і щось все ж таки вилетіло з голови, то учень завжди може перейти на explanation і ще раз продублювати собі ту інформацію, яка була надана на уроці. Тут це англійською мовою. Ну і last but not least, YouTube. Я думаю, що тут я ні для кого Америку не відкрила насправді. На YouTube безліч корисних відео, як і для спікінгу, так і для граматики, для різних рівнів. Насправді, коли у вас учень вже досить впевнений в використанні англійської мови, то можна вже і фільми якісь починати дивитися, епізоди на Ютубі, і це буде дуже і дуже useful. Oh, great. Так, бачу, що використовують Live Worksheets, YouTube. Да. Ну, я сподіваюся, що я дала ідей з British Council, тому що багато корисної інформації там, і я рекомендую користуватись. І це дуже круто, що там все безкоштовно. Так. На цьому я завершую сьогодні свій виступ. Він в мене трошечки коротше вийшов, ніж у інших спікерів, але я розумію, що вже я завершую сьогодні конференцію, тому, можливо, трошки вже всі устали. Я дуже вдячна вам за увагу, дуже вдячна, що мене сьогодні запросили. Це був класний досвід, і я сподіваюся, що я могла бути для вас корисною. Зараз, якщо в когось є питання, напишіть, будь ласка, я бачу тут вже одне питання, зараз я на нього відповім. Що ви робите з учнями, які на запитання стосовно їх інтересів відповідають одним словом, не дуже хочуть йти на контакт? В мене був такий досвід, це насправді важко, але тут вже все залежить від вас, вам потрібно розкручувати. Тобто, якщо люди всі різні, бувають закриті, і, звичайно, коли ви тільки познайомились, то важко там підлітку особливо якось розкритись, довіритись і так далі. Потрібно закидувати питаннями. Ну, тобто, наприклад, where did you go last summer? The answer, Spain. What did you do? Who did you hang out with? What entertainments did you have? What sightseeing did you go to? Тобто, тут насправді це залежить від того, як ви будете розкручуватись. І, як я вже казала, потрібно знаходити спільні теми, потрібно знаходити точки дотику для того, щоб і саме зацікавленість учня в чому. От коли ви почнете, ви спочатку там розпитуєте, які хобі, що любиш, чим займаєшся, і там людина, наприклад, каже читати книжки. І ви розповідаєте про свою улюблену книжку, і людина починає розповідати про свою. Тобто тут вже зав'язується діалог. Поступово по шажочках потрібно все ж таки цей інтерес розкривати, як, власне, розкривати учня. Так, ой, дякую вам, дякую велике за зворотній зв'язок. Так, які підручники я використовую? Це залежить від потреби для бізнесу. Зараз я вам скажу, секунду. Мені дуже подобається для загальноанглійської Headway, і мені подобається фокус. В мене більшість учнів Intermediate, Pre-Intermediate, тому я використовую ці рівні, і для фокусу це буде третій фокус. І мені здається, що у Headway є навіть бізнес, окремо підручник, ми використовуємо з однією з учениць. Так, ну, взагалі на підручниках я не дуже люблю робити фокус, але Headway і фокус класні, так. Да. Ці книги є онлайн, до речі, якими я користуюся, фокус та, я можу написати тут, мабуть, да? Фокус 3 та Headway. Я їх знайшла у відкритому доступі, тому вони, я думаю, що ви можете теж пошукати. Ой, так, клас, фокус класний, згодна. В фокусі дуже подобається listening, насправді. Так, добре, можливо, є ще якісь запитання, чи я відповіла на ваші запитання? Так, ну тоді, якщо питань більше немає, то в мене, мабуть, все. Дуже дякую ще раз. І я сподіваюся, що ще побачимось. Дякую вам велике.